What would you do if someone tried to take what you rightfully paid for just because they thought they were more important? On a routine flight, one woman's quiet refusal turned into a powerful lesson in dignity, justice, and unexpected consequences. Stay with us, because what started as a petty act of entitlement ended in a corporate shakeup that no one saw coming. Samantha James settled into seat 1A with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had earned her place, not inherited it. The seat's smooth leather embraced her like a silent reward after a long, uphill journey. Outside, the runway glowed under the embrace of a fading sun, its golden light washing over the aircraft like a soft blessing. Inside, the air buzzed gently with the low murmur of luxury. The polite greetings of first-class passengers, the gentle clink of glassware, the muted shuffle of designer shoes on plush carpet. This wasn't just any flight. It was the culmination of months of preparation. Samantha, CEO of a rising logistics tech company, was heading to finalize a deal that would take her startup global. For years, she had poured herself into this dream. Long nights, missed birthdays, and 1,000 quiet sacrifices. Now, this moment, this seat, was not just a travel arrangement. It was a symbol of everything she had built from the ground up. She loosened the silk scarf around her neck, pulled out her leather notebook, and scribbled a few last-minute reminders. Legal clauses to emphasize, cultural gestures to remember during the pitch. Every detail mattered. Samantha's success had never been based on luck. It had always come from preparation, from precision, from grit. The flight attendant approached with a warm smile and a glass of sparkling water. "Miss James," he said kindly, "let us know if you need anything else." She nodded with quiet gratitude and took a sip. The cold fizz danced on her tongue. For just a moment she allowed herself to relax, her gaze drifting out the window. The world outside seemed peaceful, and for the first time in days, so did she. But peace, Samantha knew, rarely lasted long. Just as Samantha adjusted her seat and allowed herself a rare breath of calm, the tranquility shattered. Not by turbulence, but by the distinct rhythm of high heels and entitlement. Two women entered the first-class cabin, exuding the kind of presence that demanded attention. The taller one led confidently, her lips pressed into a line of practiced discontent, her handbag dangling with the precision of a performance. This was someone used to being seen, heard, obeyed. She walked with the aura of someone who had never been told no, and certainly didn't expect to hear it today. Her name was Victoria Lane, though Samantha didn't know that yet. All she knew was what experience had taught her. This woman was going to be a problem. As the two women made their way down the aisle, Samantha could feel the shift in the atmosphere. The cabin's polite stillness tensed, as if bracing for impact. Victoria's gaze scanned the rows like a hawk until it stopped on Samantha. Her eyes narrowed, her steps slowed. Whispers started before they even reached her row. "This can't be right," Victoria muttered, her voice sharp and disdainful. "There's obviously been a mistake. This seat is always mine." Her friend, shorter, more reserved, offered a nervous shrug. "Maybe it's a system glitch?" But Victoria was already shaking her head, her expression one of disbelief mixed with irritation. She didn't just believe there was a mistake. She believed the seat was hers by right, not by ticket. They stopped directly beside Samantha's row. Victoria didn't greet her with kindness or curiosity. No smile of shared experience between travelers, just a cold glance and a forced civility. "Hi," she said tightly. "I'm pretty sure you're in my seat." Samantha didn't rush to respond. She looked up slowly, calmly, and then spoke with quiet strength. "This is seat 1A. It's mine. I reserved it weeks ago." Victoria gave a dry chuckle. "I'm a Diamond Elite member. I always sit here. I think there's been a mix-up." "No mix-up," Samantha replied, steady. check your boarding pass." Victoria hesitated, then waved a manicured hand as if the pass were a mere technicality. "Look, I don't want to make a big deal out of this. I'm sure you'd be more comfortable in a different seat anyway." That's when Samantha looked her straight in the eye. "I am comfortable right here." And with that, the stage was set. Victoria's smile had vanished entirely now, replaced by a sharpness that cut through her polished facade. Her posture stiffened, jaw clenched slightly, and her voice dropped a level, lower, cooler, and far more dangerous. "Let me be clear," she said slowly, like each word was meant to exert control. "This seat isn't just something I prefer. I always sit here. I've been flying this route for years. I don't know how your name ended up on my seat, but I'm sure we can sort it out. If you'll cooperate." Samantha didn't react immediately. She closed her notebook carefully and placed it in the seat pocket in front of her, as if signaling she was now fully present for whatever was about to unfold. Then she met Victoria's gaze with quiet, unshaken resolve. "There's nothing to sort out. My name is on this seat because I paid for it. That's how this works." Victoria's friend, visibly uncomfortable now, leaned in and whispered something to her, perhaps suggesting they drop the issue. But Victoria brushed her off, unmoved. She wasn't just frustrated, she was insulted. The idea that someone like Samantha, a woman who by all appearances didn't fit the stereotypical mold of a first-class traveler, was standing her ground against her, was clearly triggering something deeper. Victoria turned slightly to address the other passengers, her voice raised just enough to draw their attention. "This is ridiculous," she declared. "I'm a Diamond Elite member. I have priority access on every flight. I always get seat 1A. This must be some kind of glitch, and now she's refusing to move." The cabin grew tense. Some passengers looked away, pretending not to hear. Others glanced curiously at Samantha, as if silently wondering how she'd respond. But Samantha didn't budge. "I'm not refusing anything," she said, her voice firm but not loud. "I'm simply occupying the seat I purchased." Just then the flight attendant returned. Mark, his name tag read, looking more nervous now. "Ladies," he said gently, "let's try to keep things calm. Miss Carter," he turned to Samantha, "would you be willing to switch to another first-class seat, just to help de-escalate the situation?" Samantha looked at him for a long second, then spoke, clear and unwavering. "I'm not moving. This is my seat. If there's a situation, it's not because of me." The attendant swallowed hard, clearly caught in the crossfire between authority and justice. But before he could respond, Victoria let out a soft, bitter laugh and muttered just loud enough, "Of course, some people always have to make everything difficult." That was the moment Samantha knew this wasn't just about a seat. This was about something deeper, something she'd faced before, and this time, she wasn't going anywhere. Mark lingered just a moment longer, hesitating as he glanced between the two women, between status and principle. Then he turned and disappeared toward the front of the plane, leaving behind a silence charged with tension. Victoria let out a sharp exhale through her nose, as if expelling the idea that she could ever be denied something. She paced in a tight circle, her heels clicking like a ticking clock. Samantha, meanwhile, remained still. Her composure was unwavering. She wasn't trying to win an argument, she was simply refusing to surrender what was already hers. Passengers in the surrounding rows shifted uncomfortably. Some looked down at their phones, others watched with cautious interest. One elderly man removed his headphones and whispered to his wife, "I don't think that woman realizes she's picking the wrong fight." Minutes passed, stretching long and uneasy, until Rachel Jennings, the cabin supervisor, arrived. She had the professional calm of someone who'd handled plenty of tense situations, but her eyes betrayed a hint of dread. She already knew the story she was about to walk into, and she didn't like what it smelled like. "Good afternoon," Rachel said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm here to help resolve the issue." Victoria immediately jumped in. "Yes, thank you. Finally someone who can fix this mess. There's obviously been a mix-up with the seating. That's my seat, and this woman won't move." Rachel nodded politely, then turned to Samantha. "Ma'am, could I see your boarding pass, please?" Samantha, without a word, handed it over. Rachel checked the pass, then double-checked her tablet. She nodded. "Yes, Miss Carter, you're in the right seat. 1A is yours." Victoria scoffed, shaking her head. "There must be a mistake. I always get this seat. I'm a Diamond Elite member. You should check again." Rachel stood firm. "I've confirmed the assignment. Miss Carter reserved this seat ahead of time. Your seat, Miss Lane, is 2C. There was a pause, the kind that falls over a room when entitlement meets a hard wall of truth. But Victoria didn't retreat. Instead, she stepped forward slightly, lowering her voice in a way that felt more like a warning than a request. "Look," she said, "you and I both know how this works. You've seen my profile. You know what I spend with this airline. Just ask her to switch seats." Quietly, Rachel looked between them again. Her professionalism wavered for just a second. Then she made a choice. A bad one. Turning to Samantha, she smiled tightly. "Miss Carter, I understand this is your seat, but would you consider moving to 2C? It's still in first class, and it would really help us keep things smooth." Samantha blinked, not in surprise, but in the kind of disappointment that only comes when you've experienced this kind of pressure before. "No," she said simply. Her voice was even, her eyes locked on Rachel's. "I will not." That one sentence silenced the entire cabin. Even Victoria stopped moving, because suddenly everyone understood. Samantha wasn't asking for fairness. She was demanding it. Rachel took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around the edge of her tablet. The air in the first-class cabin was heavy, thick with unspoken tension and expectant silence. She had been in difficult situations before, but this felt different. It wasn't just about seating anymore. It was about a message, about choosing between appeasement and principle. Victoria's voice cut sharply through the silence. "So, that's it?" she snapped, glaring at Rachel. "You're seriously going to let this woman stay in my seat, after everything I've done for this airline?" Rachel stood firm but calm. "Miss Lane, this is not a matter of what you've done, it's about what was booked and confirmed. Seat 1A belongs to Miss Carter." Victoria's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Oh, I see. I guess my loyalty means nothing then." "I never said that," Rachel replied. "Your loyalty is appreciated, but it doesn't override someone else's confirmed reservation." Victoria let out a short, sarcastic laugh. "Unbelievable. You're actually siding with her. With her." Samantha, who had been silent all this time, finally looked up and spoke with a tone so composed it silenced even the whispers in the cabin. "She's not siding with me. She's siding with the truth." Victoria turned her full attention to Samantha. "Don't play innocent. You knew what kind of trouble this would cause, and you just sat there, acting superior." "I didn't cause trouble," Samantha said. "I claimed the seat I paid for. You're the one creating the scene." Rachel stepped between them slightly, trying to ease the growing heat. "Let's keep this civil," she said. "Miss Lane, you're welcome to take your assigned seat at 2C." Victoria crossed her arms. "Oh, I'm not going anywhere yet. I want corporate on the phone, now." Rachel hesitated. "That's your right, of course, but I have to ask that you don't delay the boarding process for the rest of the passengers." Victoria took a step closer to her, lowering her voice to a threatening whisper. You've made a serious mistake, Rachel. You have no idea who I know. Do you really think your name won't come up in the report I send?" Rachel met her eyes, tired but resolute. "Then put my name in bold." That shut Victoria up for a beat. Her jaw tightened. "You'll regret this." Samantha didn't even blink. "No, I won't," she said, almost gently. "But maybe you will." Victoria stared at both of them, Rachel and Samantha, like she was seeing enemies rather than people. Then, without another word, she spun on her heels and marched toward the front of the cabin, pulling out her phone as she went. Rachel remained where she was for a long moment, her posture still, heart racing. Then she turned to Samantha. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," she said softly. Samantha looked at her, not with pity, not with relief, but with quiet recognition. "I've been through worse," she replied, "but thank you for not looking away." And with that the two women shared a silent understanding. One stood her ground, the other made a choice, and together they shifted the balance, just a little, toward something better. Victoria stood near the front of the cabin, phone pressed to her ear, her voice sharp but contained. "Yes, I'm on flight 827, and I've been disrespected by both a passenger and your staff. I want someone from corporate on this immediately." Her tone wasn't frantic. It was surgical, calculated. She wasn't throwing a tantrum. She was pulling strings. The first-class cabin buzzed with quiet curiosity. Passengers exchanged glances. Some rolled their eyes, others listened intently. Samantha remained calm in her seat, eyes fixed on the window, but her ears caught every word. She knew the type. People who didn't raise their voices because they knew their phone calls were louder than any shout. Back in the galley, Rachel leaned against the wall, her hands trembling slightly. Greg, another flight attendant, approached her with furrowed brows. "She's calling corporate, isn't she?" Rachel nodded. "Of course she is." Greg sighed. "You think they'll back us?" Rachel didn't answer right away. Her voice was quieter now. "Depends on who picks up." At the front, Victoria was still on the line, her voice now syrupy sweet. "I know you understand. I'm not asking for special treatment, just what I deserve. I always fly 1A, and now I'm being made to sit behind someone who clearly doesn't belong there." Samantha's jaw tightened. The words weren't shouted, but they were meant to sting. Still, she didn't react. She wouldn't give Victoria the satisfaction. Rachel emerged from the galley and walked back to Samantha's seat. She crouched slightly, speaking in a tone low enough for only the two of them to hear. "She's escalating, calling higher-ups. I don't know what they'll say when they get involved." Samantha gave a faint nod. "Then let them. I'm not moving." Rachel looked at her for a long moment, as if studying the lines of a person who had stood firm against storms before. "You're sure?" Samantha's voice was unwavering. "I didn't pay for 1A to be told I should sit at the back because someone's louder or richer. If they want to back her, they can take me off this plane themselves." Rachel straightened slowly. There was no anger in Samantha's voice, just certainty. At that moment, Victoria turned, waving her phone in the air like a victory flag. "They're transferring me to someone with authority," she said loudly. "Finally." But in the silence that followed, Samantha leaned back, folded her hands on her lap, and whispered to herself with a calm so dangerous it shook the air. "Good. Let's see what authority really means." The cabin fell into a strange kind of quiet, a silence not born from peace but anticipation. Every click of a heel, every whisper over a shoulder seemed amplified. Even the hum of the engines faded behind the gravity of what was happening in seat Tane. 1A Victoria held the phone to her ear, nodding dramatically as if to show the other passengers that help was on the way. "Yes, that's correct," she said into the phone. "Flight 827, my name is Victoria Lane. I'm being mistreated by staff, and I expect an immediate response." Her voice softened. "Yes, I'll hold." Rachel stood a few feet away, arms crossed now, her face tight. Greg lingered nearby, nervously fidgeting with the edge of his jacket. Both knew this wasn't just about a seat anymore. This was politics, optics, reputation, and power. Samantha remained silent. She didn't need to talk. Her calm was louder than Victoria's phone call. Then, like thunder through clear skies, Samantha's own phone began to ring. She glanced at the screen. A small smile formed. She answered, her tone crisp and professional. "Yes, this is Samantha Carter." There was a pause. Then she stood up. Slowly, gracefully, and began walking down the aisle, past stunned passengers and wide eyes. Rachel and Greg instinctively stepped aside. Samantha stopped just a few feet from Victoria. "I think you might want to pause that call," she said politely. Victoria turned, phone still pressed to her ear. "Excuse me?" Samantha raised an eyebrow. "You're talking to the wrong department. Let me connect you to someone who actually matters." Without waiting for a reply, she lifted her phone again. "Marcus?" "Yes, I'm on board now. I need you to intervene. There's been a situation regarding crew misconduct and attempted preferential reassignment. No, I'm not looking for an apology. I want accountability." Victoria's face blanched. She pulled her phone away slightly, confused. "Who are you talking to?" Samantha didn't even look at her. "A board member. You'll hear from him soon." Victoria opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time, she looked unsure. Samantha ended her call, turned, and calmly walked back to seat 1A. The entire cabin watched in stunned silence. Rachel's face went pale. Greg whispered, "Did she just call the board?" Rachel nodded slowly. "We're not in control anymore." It didn't take long. Within minutes, the cabin door opened again. Not for passengers this time, but for authority. Two men stepped aboard, both dressed in tailored suits, badges clipped to their lapels. Their presence wasn't loud, but it was undeniable. The air shifted. This wasn't just a flight delay anymore, it was a corporate response. Rachel straightened as they approached. "May I help you?" she asked, trying to maintain composure. The taller of the two gave a curt nod. "Rachel Jennings." "Yes." "I'm Daniel Kerr, Director of Passenger Relations. This is Marcus Nguyen from Corporate Compliance." He turned the tablet in his hands. "We've been briefed on the situation." Rachel swallowed hard. "Yes, sir. We need to speak with you, the lead flight attendant, and the involved passenger, Miss Lane." Rachel hesitated. "What about Ms. Carter?" Daniel glanced down the aisle, saw Samantha seated calmly in 1A. "No need. We're already familiar with Miss Carter." Greg appeared, clearly nervous. "That's me, the lead." Daniel nodded. "You too." They were escorted into the galley. Behind them, the cabin fell into a stunned, whispered silence. Inside, the mood changed quickly. Marcus spoke first. "We've reviewed the sequence of events via onboard recordings and real-time reports. Based on what we've seen, your crew failed to maintain neutrality and applied pressure to a passenger with no fault." Rachel's face went pale. Greg looked like he might faint. Daniel stepped in. "We're initiating a formal review. Effective immediately, both of you are relieved of duty pending investigation." Greg stammered. We just tried to de-escalate." Marcus cut him off. "By asking a paying customer to move for someone louder? That's not de-escalation, that's submission." Daniel added. This is no longer a matter of seating. It's about company liability, brand perception, and internal bias. And it stops today. Greg opened his mouth to object, but caught Rachel's glance and stayed silent. Outside, Victoria still stood near the front, phone in hand, waiting for someone to return her power. Instead, it was taken away. Daniel stepped out of the galley and walked toward her. "Miss Lane?" She turned, expectant. "I'm going to have to ask you to take your assigned seat, or prepare to deplane." Her jaw dropped. "What? I was the one calling corporate?" "And we are corporate," Daniel replied coldly, "and we've made our decision." For a moment, Victoria didn't move. She stood frozen in the aisle, the phone still in her hand, her mouth slightly open in disbelief. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She had pulled every string, dropped every name, and used every ounce of influence she thought she had. But now, she was staring down two corporate representatives who didn't flinch, didn't back down, and certainly didn't bow. Daniel's expression didn't change. "Ms. Lane, if you do not comply, we will have to escort you off the aircraft." The words landed with a weight Victoria clearly wasn't prepared for. She glanced around the cabin, perhaps hoping for sympathy, a nod of agreement, anything. But all she saw were passengers watching in quiet judgment. Even the woman beside whom she had originally entered, the one who had whispered and giggled, was now staring blankly ahead, pretending not to know her. Her shoulders slowly dropped. "Fine," she muttered under her breath, the fire in her voice reduced to ash. "I'll take my seat." Daniel nodded once. "Thank you." With heavy steps, Victoria turned and made her way to 2C. As she sat down, she refused to make eye contact with anyone. She didn't ask for champagne. She didn't make another call. Silence followed her like a shadow. Meanwhile, Samantha sat calmly in 1A, her gaze steady, her posture dignified. She hadn't said a word during the confrontation. She didn't need to. Her presence, her refusal to yield, had said enough. Rachel quietly approached from the galley and leaned in. "Miss Carter," she said, her voice low, "on behalf of the crew, I'm sorry." Samantha looked at her. For a moment she said nothing. Then, with a quiet strength, she replied, "Then let it mean something. Not just for me. For the next person who doesn't look like they belong." Rachel swallowed, nodded, and stepped away. The cabin settled. The engines whirred to life again. The flight was ready to depart. But something had shifted in the air. Something subtle, powerful, and irreversible. Samantha closed her eyes, letting the hum of justice settle in her bones. She didn't win because she fought loud. She won because she never backed down. Weeks passed. Flight 827 became just another number in the airline system, but to those on board that day, it was anything but ordinary. The story spread quietly at first. Whispers between staff, anecdotes retold by passengers to friends over coffee. Then it caught wind online. A vague tweet about a woman who didn't give up her seat to privilege went viral. Articles followed, editorials, think pieces. People debated in comment sections, dissected race, class, gender, power. But no one forgot the name Samantha Carter. The airline, facing mounting pressure, issued a public statement, an apology, a promise of reform, and the announcement of new training protocols for all crew members. It didn't name names, but everyone knew. They also quietly updated their policy, giving flight attendants clearer rules to protect paying passengers from unjust pressure. Victoria Lane never commented publicly. Her Platinum Elite status was revoked quietly. She disappeared from loyalty lounges, her name redacted from the preferred flyers list. As for Samantha, she said nothing to the media. She didn't give interviews, she didn't post. She simply returned to her work, her causes, and her life. But the story followed her, not as a scandal, but as a standard. In a world where silence often protects the powerful, her stillness had shattered the illusion. She hadn't needed to shout, she didn't need to fight. She simply refused to move. And that refusal echoed in airports, in boardrooms, in classrooms, in everyday people who were told they didn't belong. Because of her, someone else would speak up. Because of her, someone would stay seated. In a world where many choose silence, Samantha chose to stand firm. With grace, dignity, and quiet strength, her story isn't just a moment on a plane. It's a reminder that you never need to raise your voice to be heard. Sometimes all it takes is refusing to move. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, don't let it end here. Drop a comment below and tell us, what would you have done if you were in Samantha's seat? And if you believe the world needs more voices like hers, hit that like button. Subscribe for more powerful stories, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, remember, you don't need a spotlight to stand tall. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply stay seated.